Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Anurekha Chariwag, Assistant Professor, Department of Sociology, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. I am coordinating the paper on sociology in India. Today we are going to discuss the module Religion in India. This module has been written by Ms. Dhruva Sinha, independent researcher, sociology. The main ideas that will be discussed in this module are: it would scrutinize the major religions that are prevalent in India and also analyze the impact of the socio-religious movements and especially the complex relation between religion and politics. Objectives: the module seeks to analyze the major religion. 2. It would also analyze the heterogeneous characters that define the religion. 3. Understand critically the reform movements and their impact. 4. Debate with the concept of secularism in India. Introduction. The module intends to scrutinize the major religions that are prevalent in India, the impact of socio-religious movements, and the complex connection between religion and politics. India is often described by an old adage, unity in diversity. The ambiguous and ambitious project of unity decided to use secularism to fight off the diversity created by religious plurality. Therefore, our study of religion will be incomplete without Indian secularism, which will bring with it a brief discussion on communalism. This module consists of 5 sections. The first one will deal with definitions of religion and brief descriptions of a few religions that are prevalent in India. It will explore not only the diverse characters of these religions but also the internal diversities. The second section will discuss 3 different socio-religious movements which took place in different eras. The third section is on secularism, which will focus on its emergence problems related to it and the issue of communalism. The fourth section will view religion from the perspective of women, and the last section will summarize and conclude the module. Religion. Religion has its origin in fear and ignorance, such as is believed by many. In ancient age, when human beings were merely savages and were unable to explain the forces of nature like lightning, rain, wind and fire. In order to appease these formidable forces, they started worshipping them. Thus, gods came into existence. Religion is derived from the Latin word religio, which denotes bonding. Charles Earlwood described religion as a search for truth and especially for eternal values. Herbert Spencer defined religion as a recognition that all things are manifestations of a power which transcends our knowledge. According to James Martineau, religion is a belief in an ever-living God. The problem with defining religion is that these definitions might be able to capture the essence of few religions while excluding that of the others. For instance, a definition that stresses on the presence of a divine being overlooks the fact that some religions do not acknowledge such a presence. Karl Marx considered religion as solace to those who are distressed. According to him, religion serves the interest of the exploiters by justifying suffering and concealing the actual truth. It creates an illusory happiness for the oppressed. Weber, on the other hand, maintained that religious ideas can have a crucial influence on changing the society. In his work on Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism, Weber regarded religion as an impetus behind the development of capitalism. Besides other religion, Weber also studied Hinduism and Buddhism. In India, religion is referred to as dharma. The term originated from the Sanskrit word dharana, which means to sustain. In defining religion in the Indian context, Madan stressed on some major features such as difference of conceptualization between dharma and religion. Dharma, according to him, denotes the path of righteousness and steadfastness, while religion indicates complete devotion. He pointed to the fact that religion in India is inseparable from other domains such as politics. Religion in India, according to him, is marked by pluralism, which is evident not only across the religion but also within these religions. Acceptance of religious pluralities can be found in the religious reform movements. Mohinuddin referred to the Bhakti and the Sufi movements as cross-fertilization of Hinduism and Islam. Both these movements stress on fundamental equality of all religion. India is called a home by people whose religious faith varies to a wide range. According to 2011 census, majority of the population is Hindu, while 13.4% are Muslims, 2.3% are Christians and 1.9% are Sikhs. A significant number of people have their faith in Buddhism, Jainism, Zoroastrianism and Judaism. Hinduism. Clothi, while discussing the religions in India, warned against a romanticized portrayal of religion. He cited the example of glorified representation of Hinduism as Sanatana Manava Dharma, which evolved as a reaction to colonial criticism. According to Panikkar, what is known as Hinduism today was actually different sects, cults and deities who came together after the advent of Islam because of social necessities. Hinduism, according to him, is synonymous with Brahmanism, which claims its origin in the Vedas. All sacred scriptures of the Hindus belong to the Shruti and Smriti. Shruti refers to those which are heard, while Smritis are those which were remembered. Shrutis are also part of eternal truths heard by sages. Vedas are part of the Shrutis. There are 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. The Rig Veda is considered the earliest one and contains hymns. The Sama Veda contains of hymns and musical notes, while Yajur Veda provides guidance for rituals. The Atharva Veda is different in character than the other 3 and is believed to represent folk religions. Each of these Vedas contains 4 parts, namely Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka and Upanishad. The other sacred scriptures such as Puranas, Itihas, Dharma Shastras, Tantras come under Smritis. The other sacred texts such as Griha Sutras, Dharma Sutras, which all come gradually after Vedas, were guidelines for performing the domestic religious ceremonies, public rituals and social ethics, argues Madan. These ancient texts divided the societies into varnas, namely Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. According to the spiritual text, these divisions were made on the basis of qualities, guna, and acts, karma. Purity, energy and ignorance specified Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras respectively. Krishna Chaitanya described these 4 castes as the seers and sensitivities, the statesmen or administrators of polities, entrepreneurs and technicians, and the unspecialized masses. Max Weber defined Indian caste system as a closed status of group, as castes were ascribed on a person during the birth and no mobility was allowed. He believed that the success of this system lied in the notion of transmigration and the hope of attaining a dignified life in the next incarnation. However, the practice of caste system is not as simple as it sounds. T. N. Madan noted that the ritualistic practices of these castes vary according to the regions. Based on people's perception of the Supreme Being, Hinduism was also divided into denominations or sampradaya, such as Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shaktism. These sampradayas were further divided into subtexts. While most of these forms were originated from Vedism, Tantrikas were believed to be non-Vedic. Currently, 80% of India's total population belongs to Hinduism, while Hinduism along with Jainism, Sikhism, Buddhism are considered of Indic origin. Islam came from outside. Islam. Muslims are the majority in Jammu Kashmir, Lakshadweep, Assam and West Bengal. Islam means the willing and the active recognition and submission to the command of the One, the Allah. People who follow this path are known as Muslim. Muslim is monotheist in nature and the origin of Islam can be traced back to 1610 AD in the preaching of Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad was born in 570 AD in Mecca. He was believed to be the messenger of God. The Quran, the holy book of Muslim, carries the dictation of Prophet Muhammad. Muslims are divided into 2 sects, Shias and Sunnis. The division was created over the conflict regarding the right successor to carry on Prophet Muhammad's work. The Sunnis, who constitute the majority of Muslim population, believe that Abu Bakr, Prophet Muhammad's father-in-law, is the true successor of the Prophet. Shias, on the other hand, follow Ali, the cousin and son-in-law of Prophet Muhammad. It is believed that the Islamic people first arrived on the Indian subcontinent at the beginning of the 8th century, though the actual invasion began in the 11th century. The invaders and the rich culture over a period of hundreds of years were gradually absorbed. According to Madan, the spread of Islam happened more through the efforts of ulama and the Sufis, though incidences of coercive conversion were not absent. Islam puts great emphasis on compassion for others. The Quran asks its followers to spread 1/10 of their income for the welfare of poor, orphan widows and those who are in need, argues Engineer. It also asks to cultivate virtues such as mercy, benevolence, compassion and justice. These virtues have been upheld by the Sufi tradition. Sufism advocates asceticism and relies more on morals than rituals. Sufi has been described as self-annihilation in God. According to Asghar Ali Engineer, Sufis believe the notion of unity of being, that is, God is one and is the source of all human beings. Therefore, all human beings deserve equal respect. Sufis went on the path of finding the essence of being, which lies beyond what can one perceive normally, and they live a life of purity in accordance with God's demand. Sufis demand belongingness with those people who are weak and suffer from social vices. Compassion is a crucial virtue for Sufis. The stories suggest that the compassion extends not only to human beings but all living beings. In India, 4 traditions of Sufism can be found. Madan argues they are Chisti, Naqshbandi, Qadiri and Subrawardi. Islam too has its internal hierarchies and practices of inequalities. Shias all of the world are considered inferior to Sunnis. This division is a perennial source of conflict between them. Muslims in India can be divided into 3 categories, namely Ashraf or the noble born, Ajlaf or people born in low caste, and Arjal or the excluded, argues Ahmad. According to Muslim, these divisions are referred to as jatis, and there are complex subdivisions based on the occupation, birth and ritualistic practices. Imtiaz Ahmad noted that people who belong to Arjal community maintain distance from other communities. In some places, they even have separate burial grounds and mosques. Sometimes, though their presence is tolerated in a mosque, they are forbidden to sit in front of the upper caste. Sikhism originated from Sant tradition in the early 16th century. It started as a philosophy which later converted to a religion. Guru Nanak is considered to be the founder of this religion. He was born in 1469 in an upper caste Hindu family. However, he soon realized in the futility of idol worshipping, rituals and rites. He showed his followers the way to salvation through the continuous remembrance of the divine being or the Akal Purakh. He was the preaching of the Guru Nanak to do labor, share and eat and recite God's name. By rejecting the notion of difference among human beings, he emphasized on devotion, effort and morality. He also put emphasis on meditation as a mean to realize the omnipresence of God. People who followed him were known as Nanakpanthis and afterwards Sikh. Sikh religion had 10 gurus. After Nanak, there were Guru Angad, Guru Amar Das, Guru Ramdas, Guru Arjun, Guru Har Gobind, Guru Har Rai, Guru Har Krishan, Guru Tegh Bahadur and Guru Gobind Singh. Guru Granth Sahib is the sacred scripture of the Sikh that holds the essence of this religion. After Nanak, it was necessary to have a successor to protect this evolving religion from oblivion. He believed without a successor, Nanak Panth wouldn't have survived. He also noted that as followers grew in number, the philosophy of Nanak was ascribed on new numbers at birth. He pointed out to the fact that with growing number of disciples and expansion of geographical area, there was an increasing pressure for certain changes. Therefore came into existence the system of supervision through which people were appointed to act on behalf of the gurus. The concept of langar also arrived during this time. Langar system brought inspiration from Nanak's preaching against caste system and unequal treatment of human beings. The story of establishment of Sikhism is incomplete without a brief glimpse into the emergence of Khalsa. According to the most popular belief, Guru Gobind Singh baptized Sikhs to instigate them against the oppressive ruling and injustice of the Mughals. Khalsas are those who go through an initiation ceremony and follow a certain course of conduct, which consist of abstinence from liquor, tobacco, practice of dowry, casteism and protecting the defenselessness. Their duties also include worshipping one divine being and contributing 1/10 of earnings for religious purpose. In spite of Guru Nanak's preaching against outward rites and practices, Sikhism fell prey to institutional worships and rituals such as Gurudwara and initiation ceremonies. These changes as responses towards changed situations which one believes was necessary as a growing and maturing panth could never have sustained the informality of the first Guru's practices. Like many other religions, Sikhism could not avoid internal divisions and was split into many groups. Baptized Sikhs also follow all the tenets are Amritdharis, while Sikhs who are not baptized are known as Keshdharis. Sajadhari Sikhs are those who are not born within the Sikhism and choose to become one by following the doctrines. MacLeod also noted that the caste distinction was not absent among Sikhs, though there were no caste-based discrimination. By referring to local narratives, he showed that not only were all the gurus from Khatri caste, but they also followed old traditional practices of marriage. Studies showed that though the lower caste as well as outcaste embraced Sikhism, the way they used to be treated did not change much. The Jats who were according to the Varna system were treated as Shudras, were attracted to egalitarian nature of Sikhism and converted themselves into Sikhs. Gradually, they earned land, wealth and high social status. Later, colonial rulers elevated the position of Jat Sikhs in British Indian Army. Jats were glorified as loyal, courageous and racially pure. Possession of land became synonymous with dominant caste. Mazhabi Balmaki Sikhs who did not have any right over land and used to perform menial work became outcast. Mazhabi Rahita Ramdasiya Sikhs along with few other groups were considered untouchables and prohibited from accessing wells and entering into the Golden Temple. Instances of discrimination during Langar are not uncommon. Incidences of prohibiting entry of Dalit Sikhs into Gurudwaras and proscribing them from using common cremation ground led to the establishment of separate Gurudwaras and cremation grounds for Dalits. While Hinduism, Sikhism and Islam are theistic in nature, Buddhism, Jainism are what one describes as heterodoxies. Heterodoxies are those who challenge the Vedic authority and put emphasis on action rather than on wisdoms. They not only rejected God but also refused to accept the existence of life after death. Buddhism and Jainism attracted merchants with a simplistic principle which stressed on morality and working one's way life towards salvation. Buddhism. Buddha refers to one who has attained complete spiritual awakening. It means an enlightened one. Gautam Buddha was born in 5th century BC and was named Siddhartha. At young age, he realized that suffering is inevitable and went in search of truth. The notion of impermanence and suffering is the core of Buddhism. The suffering emanates from ignorance about the real nature of things. Therefore, Buddha explained 4 truths and 8 paths that can enable one to live a life without misery. There was no concept of God in Buddhism during the nascent period. However, at a later stage, Buddha was deified and rituals evolved. The followers were divided into 2 sects, Mahayana and Hinayana. The Mahayana sect perceives Buddha as a divine being, while followers of Hinayana recognize him as an enlightened human being. Human beings are one and the same in their essential characteristics. This was the preaching of Buddha, argues Krishna. Buddha's philosophy did not really go beyond this immediate life and dealt with eternity. Neither did it try to answer questions regarding the existence or non-existence of God. Rather, Buddhism tried to end the sufferings of human beings that emanates from desire and greed. The scholars believe that Buddhism improved the life of women as it emphasized on equal treatment of both genders. Bhikkhuni Sanghas brought rays of hope for women who got the opportunity to educate themselves. It also criticized the caste system and untouchability that was prevalent among Hindus. Buddha undermined the position of Brahmin by saying that every person has a right to reach the highest perfection irrespective of their gender or socio-economic background or caste. Buddha asked human beings to abstain from violence, killing and practicing slavery. Buddha emphasized on rational thinking and discussion on resolving issues as opposed to believing something blindly on account of its being tradition, old or even written. Buddhism, because of its non-discriminating feature, attracted those people who were downtrodden and suffered on account of being at the lowest strata of social order within the caste system. Buddhism and Jainism are not only similar in principles, but similarity can also be found in the stories regarding the early life of Buddha and Mahavir. Both were from royal families and renounced their wealth afterwards. Jainism. Jainism is considered as one of the oldest religions of India. The term Jain comes from Jina. Jina is the one who has been liberated from the worldly emotions and enlightened with infinite knowledge, argues Sangave. Self-controlled, morality, meditation, omniscience and non-violence are the path of Jainism. Jainism is divided into Digambara and Shvetambara texts. However, it has not been possible to figure out the exact reason of this division. The division and the differences between these 2 sects are also minimal. It is believed Jinas who strive for the liberation of the human beings appeared as Tirthankaras at different periods of time. According to Jain philosophy, there are 24 Tirthankaras. Mahavir Jain is believed to be the last one of them. Jainism also encouraged charity or dana. In Jainism, charity is believed to be way of controlling one's greed, which is a source of violence. It promoted charity by means of offering education, medicine, food and shelter. Unlike all religions, Christianity came to India at a recent period. It arrived with Christian missionaries who saw the opportunities in people's indignation towards prejudiced caste system. Apart from these, there are many other religions as well as cults which are less heard of. Bauls, which can be found in Bengal, is an example of one such cult which is similar to Sufism. They are wandering minstrels who renounce their previous connection to Hinduism or Islam. In northeastern India, old animistic tribal religion still prevails. It can be assumed that all religions which claim hegemony over the others on account of being old or ultimate are delusional. Religious reform movements. Ashgar Ali Engineer often referred to as religion as dogmas. A dogma, according to him, is an authoritative doctrine which gradually over time gains acceptance by a huge mass and becomes unchallengeable. He denoted this stage as a doctrinal syndrome and maintained that most of the major religious faiths are affected by it. He said, as life is full of uncertainties and doubts, human beings are normally in search of certainty, security and sanctity, and dogmas and doctrines provide all three. However, while tracing the origin of religion, one can see that all these started with the search for truth. Religions were meant to be guidelines that would lead human beings to the right path. Engineer stated that Islam, for example, stressed on thinking, reasoning and contemplating and wisdom. It cautioned against accepting tradition without questioning, as blind faith would lead to empty rituals. However, over time, these religions digressed into meaningless rituals and superstition. The stagnation of these religions gave birth to all religious reform movements. Since medieval to contemporary period, history has been witness to several reform movements. Some of these movements were conspicuous, while others were more subtle. Bhakti and Brahma Samaj movement were of the former type, where Sufi movement and Bauls were less conspicuous. Along with Bhakti movement and Brahma Samaj, we also will discuss Dalit movement, which also started as a revolutionary reaction against caste-based oppression and issue of untouchability. Bhakti movement. Bhakti movement originated during the medieval period and occurred at different places in different times throughout the succeeding countries as a revolutionary response to the decadence of prevalent religion. Bhakti has been defined as devotion, love, meditation and continuous remembrance, and even as prayer. Ramanuja defined it as absolute self-surrender to God. It is also argued that Bhakti is attainable by God's realization through devotion rather than ritual. An essential feature of Bhakti movement is monotheism. Ramanuja in Tamil Nadu, Jayadeva, Namadeva, Ramananda, Kabir, Chaitanya in Bengal, Tulsidas, Mirabai are some of the proponents of Bhakti movement. Bhakti movement was open to people of all kinds of religion, caste, class and gender. People oppressed by caste hierarchies took solace under it. The advocates of this movement preached equality. According to Ramanuja, anyone can attain salvation, as devotion knows neither caste, color or social status. Bhakti movement undermined Varna system and superiority of Brahmanism. It was characterized by equality of all, irrespective of caste, creed, religion or social and economic status, resistance against caste system, opposition to idolatry and ritualistic practices and complete devotion. Most of the proponents of this movement preferred the vernacular language instead of Sanskrit, as local language were easily understood by the masses. Therefore, the movement had an enormous impact on vernacular literature. Tulsidas authored Ramacharitra-Manas, while Chandidas produced Sri Krishna Kirtan in Bengali, while Sri Chaitanya preached the masses in Bengali throughout his life. At a later period, while residing in Puri, he encouraged his disciple to use Oriya. Kabir propounded the unity, equality and futility of rituals through poems written in Hindi, while Marathi was used by Eknath and Tukaram. Such movements arose whenever there was oppression and suffering and embraced by a large number of people who were otherwise excluded in the name of class, caste or jati. Rishi movement and Sant tradition are examples of such movements. Brahma Samaj movement, on the other hand, emphasized on recovering the pure intellectuality of Upanishads and was mostly embraced by few educated ones but failed to attract people from all sections of society. Brahma Samaj movement. This religious reform movement started in Bengal by Raja Ram Mohan Roy during the 19th century. It was an attempt of a few enlightened people to redeem the moral character and to liberate the mass from horrid religious and social rites, rituals and superstitions like sati, child marriage, witchcraft, polygamy and other social malice. This movement started with Ram Mohan's rejection of idolatry and criticism of priesthood. He translated Vedanta in 5 Upanishads in order to inform the masses that his assertion is true as it is written in the oldest text of Hinduism. In 1828, he established Brahma Samaj, which was meant to encourage assembly of all those who did not believe in ritualistic practices, idol worship and had faith in the unity of God. Afterwards, Brahma Samaj got divided into different sects because of internal divisions. This reform campaign did not restrict itself to religion but took an ambitious steps towards social reform as well. It raised awareness for education of women and eradication of parda as well. Schools and colleges were established and journals were published specifically for women. The revolutionaries also advocated a ban against polygamy and child marriage while they supported widow remarriage. Child Marriage Act 1872, which proscribed early marriage, polygamy and authorized intercaste marriage, is believed to be in existence because of Keshav Chandra Sen and Brahma Samaj movement. Brahma Samaj of India, which was separated from the Adi Brahmana Samaj of Debendranath Tagore under the leadership of Keshav Chandra Sen, also indulged in philanthropical works like famine relief, night school dispensaries, etc. Towards the end of the 19th century, the Brahma Samaj movement gradually disappeared into obsolescence. Dalit movement. In the recent period, the biggest movement witnessed against Brahmanism is the Dalit movement under the leadership of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. It was an attack on the socio-cultural hegemony of the so-called higher caste. Ambedkar wanted to elevate the social status of Dalits, which he realized will not be possible except by conversion to other religion. Buddhism, which stands at the exact opposite of Brahmanism with its equality, simplicity and refusal of idolatry, presented a suitable alternative. According to B.R. Ambedkar, Buddha wanted this religion to be such that it is open to change as need arises. He wished his religion not to be encumbered with the dead wood of the past. He wanted that it would remain evergreen and serviceable at all times. While Brahmanism posed Vedas as infallible and unquestionable, Buddhism taught nothing is infallible. He stressed on reasoning and transience. Ambedkar also stated that while the root of Hinduism lies in social necessities, Buddhism thrived upon the principle of morality. Because of this, Ambedkar and a large number of his followers converted to Buddhism in 1956. Discussion on religion in India cannot be complete without a glance at post-colonial period. Politics in India has always been under too much influence of religion. History has witnessed religion causing conflict and divergent political interests. Therefore, the leaders used the ideology of secularism to unite the whole nation. Emergence of secular India. Though India is defined as a secular country, the debate over its secular characteristics never ceased. India was declared as a secular in the 42nd Amendment 1976. In Western societies, secularism evolved due to conflict between the church and the state. The supreme authority of the church was challenged because it was viewed as a hindrance for growth, which resulted in separation of church and religion from politics, argues engineer. But in a country like India, where religion is omnipresent, it is not easy task to separate nation state from religion. Therefore, it focused on treating all religions equally. The term secularism was coined by George Holake in the mid-19th century. He believed that unity of principles can win over diversity of opinions. Thus, he wished to bring all human beings, irrespective of their religious beliefs, under the term secular. Various scholars have defined secularism in different manners, but mostly they have agreed that secularism is a separation of religion from state or politics, argues Bhargava. Some of the scholars have also defined it as a separation of the private from the public sphere. Secularism ensures the equality of all citizens. Nehru described secularism as freedom of religion and conscience, including freedom of those who may have no religion. It means free play of all religions, subject only to their not interfering with each other or with basic conceptions of a state. Therefore, Nehruvian ideology viewed secularism as a state of separation between religion and public affairs. Indira Gandhi, the third Prime Minister of India, referred to secularism as equal alignment with all religion. According to Amartya Sen, a secular state must treat all religions equally. P.C. Chatterjee described a secular state as one that forbids discrimination of citizens on the basis of religion. Non-interference of state in religious issues has also been mentioned by him as a crucial feature of a secular state. In India, secularism evolved due to political prerequisite. In order to fight colonialism, it was necessary to unite everyone. During 1920s, the Indian National Congress used the notion of secularism in uniting people from all sections of societies, irrespective of the religious beliefs, against the colonial rule. However, after independence, instead of refurbishing the old British structure of governance, which relied on consulting people like Maulvis or Pandits to resolve issues for respective communities, the Constitution of Independent India to some extent followed the old structure. Therefore, the new constitution was not free from imperfections, and it reinforced the previous asymmetric ways of treating citizens based on the religious faiths. In the absence of a uniform civil code, the constitution depended on varying personal laws for various religious communities in resolving issues regarding marriage, divorce, adoption, succession, inheritance, etc. Since its introduction, the constitution has gone through numerous modifications. Many such modifications have been done with intentions of reforming Hindu personal laws. For instance, the divorce and inheritance rights of women was introduced. Furthermore, in resolving family matters, state got the ultimate jurisdiction in the case of Hindus. Such is not the case of other religious communities. Islamic laws did not go under any reforms, and the consequence of applying personal law was witnessed during the Shah Bano case. Whether or not to implement a uniform civil code is a matter of raging controversy, as many religious communities feel that abolishing personal law will inevitably be replaced with laws manifesting Hindu interest. Moreover, after independence, the clause of reservation opened a door for lower caste people to move upward in the status quo, which according to Shani created a complex situation. The upper caste felt threatened by reservation policies as the situation improved for the backward caste. They assumed that policies are favoring lower caste people, which give rise to resentment and violence. Now the caste system is an inherent feature of Hinduism. At present, caste is seen more as a political discourse. According to the constitution, a person who belongs to any religion other than Hinduism cannot be considered as scheduled caste, and if a scheduled caste person gives up Hinduism, he or she will be no more be considered for the right of reservation, as other religions do not have any concept of caste. Therefore, caste system is not a rigid system governed by religion anymore. It is governed and defined by the state and its reservation policies. In spite of advocating secularism, India has witnessed communal violence between religious communities numerous times. Killing of Christian missionaries, violence against Sikhs, recent Gujarat carnage, continual atrocities against Dalits are only glimpses of such violence. According to Periyar, religion is nothing but the obstacle of society. He believed that religion is the source of all kinds of inequalities and social injustices. The tendency to prove one's religion is superior than the others results only in conflicts. The Hindutva movement has started in early 1900s, resulted in atrocities against Muslims in different places at different times. The announcement of jihad by student organizations SIMI is believed to be a counteract against the Hindutva movement by some. Communalism, according to Chandra, emerged in India as a result of modern politics. Communalism gets strength from the notion of serving a certain community, for example, a Hindu, Muslim, or a Sikh. While talking about communalism, one needs to remember that these communities are by no means homogeneous in nature. They are divided in terms of region, language, culture, class, social status, food habits, and even in customs and ritualistic practices. Chandra further explained it by saying that an upper class Muslim had far more in common culturally with an upper class Hindu than with a lower class Muslim, and a Punjabi Hindu stood closer culturally to a Punjabi Muslim than to a Bengali Hindu. Moreover, thousands of years of cohabitation made people of different religious faiths to exchange and accept beliefs of others. Scholars argue that while seeking the solution to certain problems, the boundaries between faiths often get dissolved, making people seek refuge of gods of other religion. Thus, we have deities like Dakshin Roy and Banbipi in Sundarban area of Bengal. These deities are worshipped by both Hindus as well as Muslims in the hope of getting protection against tigers. Also, if one looks at the shrines of Muslims in Jammu Kashmir, one can see the influence of Buddhism, as most of the Muslims in Kashmir were converted from Buddhism. Impact of religion on women. Women are the most vulnerable victims of religion. Women have suffered through practices like dowry system, sati, child marriage, polygamy, and devdasi. Hindu religious scriptures have always glorified those female characters that have shown devotion and obedience in spite of suffering. Vora argued that the existent social and economic inequality is derived from these texts. In Islam, women are considered inferior to men and they are advised to be obedient and cover themselves with a veil. Similarly, sacred Hindu texts make women almost slaves to their father, husband, or sons. They are even advised to worship their husbands. Women were proscribed to remarry after the death of their husbands and instructed to stay loyal to the deceased. It is believed that some of these rituals were restricted to upper caste people. Gradually, they were adopted by other castes as well. For instance, at first, sati was prevalent among Brahmins, but later it was found in practice among all. Chatterjee also showed that in Buddhism, bhikkhunis are considered inferior to bhikkhus. Bhikkhus are entitled to admonish and receive confession of bhikkhunis, but not vice versa. Conclusion. Religions in India are vast and complex in nature. The above discussion showed that not only are these religions distinct in nature, but their numerous sects and subsects also vary in terms of beliefs and practices. Some of these religions are animistic, polytheistic or monotheistic in nature, while others are atheistic. Many cults and sects evolved gradually from these religions, most of which degraded over time and are considered corrupted and exploitative narrative now. It also showed that casteism pervaded other religions as well, and conversion could not stop caste-related atrocities. To ensure equal treatment for all its citizens, India was declared a secular country. It is a country of assorted religion, cultures, values, beliefs and practices. Respect instead of tolerance can lead it towards realizing the true nature of secularism. Today in this module, Religion in India, we discussed about the various types and nature of religions in India, the practices and the diversities and distinctions between religions. What is important for us to understand is that if we want to make sense of the practices of religious beliefs in India today, we need also to make sense of historically how religions are practiced in India and also be aware of the inequalities. We also need to understand that caste system as such is popularly understood to be a practice associated with Hinduism, but in reality it is a practice which is associated with almost all religions in India today. Thank you.